So today I thought I would just do a quick wrap-up video of everything I read in July, and read is a strong word because most of the stuff that I read this month was audiobooks. The majority of what I read tends to be audiobooks because I'm always, out and about doing things, so I ended up getting a subscription to audiobooks 2 years ago, and the amount of books I read has just gone way up because say I'm at work, I'm running, just sitting in the morning, having my coffee and whatever, I always put an audiobook on rather than watching TV. So my TV and movie time has really gone down and my audiobook time has gone up like crazy. Like sometimes I can get 3 to 4 hours of audiobook time in a day, depending on what I'm doing for work. If I'm doing very monotonous stuff where I don't need to be thinking about what I'm doing, then I'll just put audiobooks on in the background. And I get through an audiobook in no time. Sometimes I want to listen to nothing but music, but sometimes I want something different than my music. But anyways, so this month I think I had 5 audiobooks, and I've been physically reading 2 books, but they're both really big books, so I haven't finished either of them. And the first one I'll talk about obviously is Way of Kings. Pretty much all my other videos I've done on this channel have been about Way of Kings so far. So I'm almost halfway through. I just finished book 2. There is 5 books in total in the first book, it's separated into books. So I finished the first 2. I'm just into the interlude chapters now, and I'm about halfway through because the book is 1,000 pages and I'm about 500 pages in, so halfway there. I'm hoping to finish it before we are going on a road trip to my parents. And I live very far from my parents, but flying in Canada is very expensive, so we actually drive rather than fly because it's cheaper, and my parents live on a farm in the middle of nowhere, so we need a car when we're there as well, and renting a car isn't an option, so we just drive so that way we have access to a car, and then that way when I go to my parents and back we can bring things here and there. Like I still have a ton of books at my parents that I need to bring back. A lot of Stephen King, I think. So I need to bring a lot of my books back. So it's more or less why we drive. I think we might try and film some and do a bit of a video on it because I think people might find it interesting. And I plan to do a lot of reading because it is... So my parents live 2,300 kilometers away from us. Door to door, basically, it's about that, and it equates to 30 hours of driving, so I have lots of time to read. We will be splitting up the driving obviously, but I'm going to have a ton of time to be reading, so I've been thinking about what I want to bring, and I think I'm going to bring Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I brought that. I think that'd be a nice quick little read to bring. And I'm not quite sure. I do have Era 3 of Mistborn, but they're my friend's books, so I don't know if I want to bring those because they're not mine. And, the odd chance I wreck the book or lose it or, something like that, I don't want to bring them. And Way of Kings is also a library book, so I don't want to bring that because I don't want to lose a library book. So I'm probably going to bring books that I personally own. So I have a lot of Margaret Atwood I have never read, and a bunch of Alice Munro, who are both Canadian authors. If you don't know them, I would highly suggest. Margaret Atwood wrote Handmaid's Tale, which I would say is probably her most popular book because of the TV series. But anyways, back to my July wrap-up. I have read half of Way of Kings, and then the other book that I have started but not finished yet it's called, I have the book here, it's called Death's End by Cixin Liu. I probably butchered that awfully. It is the 3rd book in his trilogy, it's the last of the trilogy, and the trilogy is the 3 Body Problem, and it's a sci-fi book. It is about the question of aliens. Is there aliens? And it doesn't dwell on so much of what the aliens are like and how they act, a little bit to that extent, but I feel the series is more on the philosophical question of how humans and humanity would react to finding out that there's aliens. like these books go through what Sichin thinks would happen. And I would probably say this is the favorite series that I have read this year so far. I love sci-fi. I think sci-fi is probably, if I had to rate my genres that I like the most, I think I would put sci-fi above fantasy, because I just love space and I want to know what is out there. So I love the speculativeness and the different ideas people have of what is out there and what kind of aliens are out there. The aliens in here are definitely not something I would have thought of. But yeah, so I'm almost halfway through this one. I'm noticing a trend that I am all over the place when I'm reading. I'm really into this series, but I put it down because I needed to start Way of Kings. But I also had I finished the first 2 Mistborn books, and then I went into this. Like, I have trouble just starting a series and finishing a series, basically. So I think I need to read more standalone books. Which is, I think Legends and Lattes will be a good option. I might have, it seems like I would get through that pretty quick on the road trip though, so I might bring 1 or 2 books. Like, I don't think 1 is enough for the trip there. So those were the physical books I read. Everything else that I read was an audiobook. So the first book I actually finished this month was definitely my least favorite book of the month. It is Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter. And I don't normally read thrillers because I don't like them, and this book just proved that I don't like thrillers. But the reason I read it was because every month Audible has a free download, and it was the free download last month, and I thought, oh, I'll try something different. I've been reading a lot of sci-fi and fantasy lately. I'll change it up a bit. And I didn't like it. I tried. I probably would have DNF'd it, but I knew I was going to do a video like this, so I was like, oh, I have to finish it so I can, I have to finish it to the end so I can have justice to why I don't like it, or maybe I'll read it to the end and I end up liking it, but no. I don't, if you want to read it, go ahead. Like, I know Karen Slaughter has a lot of other books that are really popular and have done really well, but it was just not my cup of tea. It was too drawn out. I think that's the reason why I don't like thrillers, is because it's this person did something, but then we're gonna spend 200 pages of not really doing anything, and then, oh, this is what they did. It's like, it feels like it's something that could be summed up in like a paragraph of like the actual plot. Like, I feel like not a lot actually happened. There was just a lot of inner monologue of the 2 main characters. Like the daughter being, ooh, what did my mom do, over and over again, and her replaying a scene that happened at the beginning just over and over, and it just seemed like a lot of like regurgitation. I'm like, okay, just what did the mom do? Like, I don't need all this filler stuff. And then at the end there's an epilogue, and I don't know how many pages equates to reading time, but the epilogue was an hour and a half in the audiobook, and that just felt ridiculous. And the entire epilogue, I'm like, hey, can we just like wrap it up? Like, are we almost done? Because like, it felt like there was nothing new added to the epilogue. It was just a chapter of like closure for the main character. There was nothing new. Like, it seemed completely unnecessary for me, and I wouldn't have minded, a 1 or 2 page monologue, but it just went on for like what seemed like 100 pages of her just saying, yep, this person was bad and I'm getting closure. And there's also a character in the book that was like a bad evil character, and she just said, you dumb bitch, with like every single sentence she said, pretty much. And I'm like, if you want the character to be bad and mean and whatever, like, I don't mind, and that she swears, but like, can you give her more than one swear, like more than just a catchphrase? Like, she said it after like the 10th time. I'm like, okay, I get it. She likes to swear. Can we move on? Can we give her a different swear at least? So yeah, that was the book that I did not enjoy. Going forward, if I don't like it, I'm just going to DNF it, even though it's an audiobook, so it seems easy to finish, because it was actually kind of painful to have to listen to the whole thing. But then the rest of my month was filled with Harry Potter. So Audible also had the first Harry Potter was free on Audible for the month of July, so I figured, why not? It's been a long time since I've read it, and I'd never actually listened to the audiobooks, and I had heard that Jim Dale's performance of it is just amazing, and he's won awards for it. And after I've listened to the first 4 now in the month of July. I'm currently reading the 5th one now, and I can totally see why he won awards. Like, it's a whole different experience, and he does such an amazing job. Like, most narrations that I've listened to so far, it's if there's, say, female characters and male characters, the narrator usually just has like a male voice and a female voice, but Jim Dale actually has like very distinct voices for pretty much every single character. Like, I think my favorite one that he does is Professor Grubbly Plank. It's like, it's just, he's so good. And the other things I've noticed is, I won't bother talking about the plot because it's Harry Potter. It's been done to death, but the narration. So I think the first 3 or 4 audiobooks were done before the movies came out. So there was a couple words that I noticed were done differently than in the movies. Like, Jim Dale pronounces Voldemort up until the 5th one. He changes in the 5th one. And I found that interesting because I think only like 2 or 3 years ago I realized that Voldemort is French. That it's vol de mort, flight of death. So it makes sense that Jim Dale doesn't pronounce the T. And I think J.K. Rowling says herself that she doesn't pronounce the T. But he switched because everyone's seen the movies by this point. Everyone calls him Voldemort. And then the other one that I noticed, it's just, I think, a thing for me because of my name. My name is Alyssa, but it gets mispronounced all the time. People don't even get my name when I say it. It's usually people think my name is Melissa or Allison, Ashley, and Alicia. I do get Alicia quite a bit, and that's the point I'm going to talk about is in the first couple books he pronounces Alicia as Alicia. It just, from me, like 90% of the people that say my name for the first time, they always get it wrong. Even after I correct people, they still pronounce it Elisa for the most part, especially now that I'm in the French part of Canada. Like, people with accents tend to pronounce my name as Elisa, and I'm just like, Alicia, I feel your pain. It's Alicia, not Alicia, because he fixes it in the 4th one. I think he starts pronouncing her name as Alicia. And there's a girl in my town with the name Alicia, so I'm like, it's Alicia, it's not Alicia. But other than that, I'm really enjoying the audiobooks. If you haven't done the audiobooks of Harry Potter, I highly recommend it. It's a whole new experience. It's like a new way to enjoy it, even though the series is so old, and I first experienced it when the books came out when I was a kid. And for those people, do not worry. I went to the library for the other books. Like, I haven't been buying them with my Audible credits, so get that elephant out of the room. But other than that, those are the only books I read this month. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention is, so during the pandemic too, Audible had a bunch of books that were free on their account. And because I've moved to the French part of Canada, I've been working on improving my French. And I saw that they had the first Harry Potter, the French version was free. So I figured, oh, great, I'll do that and get some French context. It's like a tip for if you're learning a new language, read a book you've already read in the language that you want to read it in. I've done that for other books, and it's really helped with my French learning. So yeah, I figured, great, I'll listen to the audiobook in French, and I had to DNF it. I don't remember who the narrator was, but they just went over the top with the voices. I tried, but I don't think I made it past basically where Hagrid gets introduced, because he just screams whenever Hagrid is talking. I was constantly having to up and down the volume levels because it was too much. I'm like, I can't listen to this. Like, he's just screaming into the microphone, like my ears. So I had to give that up, unfortunately. I will give a short example of what he would do. So yeah, so this is when Hagrid enters, and he's finding out that Harry knows zilch about the wizarding world. So Harry, quel monde, Aigri Baru sur le point d'exploser. Dirty! Or that deal. Like, that would be the difference in volume levels. I'm like, I can't do this. It's too much. So I recommend the English audiobooks, not so much the French audiobooks. So yeah, I'd already mentioned the books I'm planning to read for August. If you have any suggestions of maybe your favorite books or something that is a good road trip read, because again, yeah, I'm going to be in a car for 30 hours. It's 30 hours of driving, not 30-hour total trip. It's 30 hours of driving. So plus, you know, when we're stopping for food and sleeping and whatnot, it takes us like, we do tend to go pretty straight through because it's in northern Ontario. If you've never been there, it's the middle of nothing. There are actually points where there's signs that say make sure you have gas because the next stop isn't for another like 100 kilometers. So there's literally like nothing, so we just go because we want to get home. The sightseeing is beautiful, it's the Canadian Shield, but there's not a lot to do, and I want to get home to my family, so we just booker. But yeah, so 30 hours of driving. The entire trip takes us about 2 days, I think. So I need 30 hours of book reading material, and so 2 weeks later I'll need 30 hours for the way back. But I do have books of my parents, so I might just take a couple of those and read those on the way back. Probably end up being a Stephen King road trip on the way back. But yeah, leave your suggestions, and thank you for watching.